In this video, I'm going to discuss the basics of nutrition. Some of this information's in your book, but a lot of when you look at your objectives for this area will come from the two videos I'm going to do. The first one's going to be on basic nutrition, and the second one will be on reading labels and looking at healthy eating patterns. So first of all, just the basic goal of digestion. We want to break down nutrients to make them into small enough molecules that they can get from your small intestine into your bloodstream. Food doesn't do you any good if is not absorbed. In order to be absorbed, which means go into the bloodstream, then it has to be broken down into small enough parts. We're going to talk about fuel nutrients, and we're going to talk about essential nutrients. The fuel nutrients are 3 of the 6 essential nutrients. They're called fuel nutrients because they're going to supply your body with energy. Your cells are going to use these nutrients to make energy to function. We're also going to talk about vitamins, minerals, and water, which are not fuel nutrients. They don't directly supply you with energy, but they are necessary for health and for life. So your digestive system is going from your mouth all the way down to your anus. Also sometimes called the alimentary tract. And again, food is useless. It's useless unless it's absorbed into the bloodstream. The example you can use is corn on the cob. When you eat corn on the cob, up here, what ends up coming out down here? Basically corn not on the cob. So when you see these corn kernels in your poop, basically you were not able to break them down and not able to absorb them, so they don't supply you with any nutrients. So there's 6 essential nutrients. We talked about the 3 fuel nutrients. We're going to go into those in more detail, and you're probably familiar with these because you've probably heard about them used in several contexts. The first ones are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are sugars. When you hear the word sugar, they are carbohydrates. Now, not all carbohydrates are created equally. We'll talk about that a little bit. Anything that ends in OSE is a carbohydrate. Plus, you hear about glycogen and starch. Glycogen is how we store our sugars, our glucose. Starch is how animals store their glucose. We eat the starch and then we store it as glycogen. Glycogen and starch are stored forms of glucose, like I told you. Animals store glycogen, plants store starch. Glucose is the preferred fuel of your brain cells. Your nervous system needs and likes glucose. So not all carbohydrates are created equally, but we have to make sure that we have some glucose in your body. What the digestive system will do, it will take the starch, let's say you eat a potato, it will take the starch and break it down. Think of starch as a big brick wall, and each of those bricks is a glucose. What our digestive system will do is take that starch and break it down into individual glucoses or individual bricks. Those bricks can be absorbed into the bloodstream and your nervous system can use it, or if you have too many of them, your muscles and your liver can store them as glycogen, so putting that brick wall back together again inside your liver or inside your muscles. Now, unfortunately, what also can happen is if you don't have any more storage areas for any more glycogen, it will be converted into fat. So eating too many carbohydrates, if you look at the history of nutrition, one of the things people were told like 25 years ago was, you can eat all the carbohydrates you want. If you take fat out of your diet, then you'll be fine. What we found is that people were still gaining weight, and the reason they were still gaining weight is because this glycogen, when we ran out of storage space, started to convert itself into fat. Now, look at all these pictures, and one thing they have in common is they all contain carbohydrates. Now, they're different types of carbohydrates, but they all contain carbohydrates. So there are many foods, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, that are high in carbohydrates, like potatoes, pasta, candy, fruits, breads, rice, cereals, all high in carbohydrates. But again, they are not all created equally. So what are the differences between them? Well, again, if we go back 25 years, again, what it said was, if you eat carbs and stay away from fats, you'll be fine. But we have what are called simple sugars. That comes in candy, pop, sugared cereals, and so on. These are digested incredibly quickly. which means this: they will go from your intestine, from your mouth, I should say, down in your intestine, and they will raise your blood sugar very quickly. Now, you all know how it feels when you're really hungry and eat a candy bar and man, you're running on the sugar high for a while, but then you take that big drop. All right, you just kind of fall off the ledge and you just feel really, really tired. The reason is because those are simple sugars. They don't take long to digest, so they get into your bloodstream, but then they cause the secretion of insulin, and then your blood sugar plummets and you feel like crap. So this is an example of the type of sugars you don't want to eat. Complex carbohydrates are more like the brick wall. They have to be broken down. It takes longer to digest, so your blood sugar does not go up as quickly. Now again, 20 years ago or so, people were saying, stay away from these simple sugars, but you can eat these complex carbohydrates. And what we found is that's not necessarily true either, that these can actually raise your blood sugar just as quickly as these three examples. So we started looking at the glycemic index, which I will talk about in a second. So what makes a really good carbohydrate to consume? Ones that contain fiber. So fiber is a type of indigestible carbohydrate. It will not go into your bloodstream, but it can serve many positive functions. What they found is that high fiber diets lower your risk of heart disease and they lower your risk of cancer. And the more your diets contain fiber, your carbohydrates contain fiber, you actually lower your risk of becoming diabetic because your blood sugar will not spike as quickly. 30 grams a day are recommended of fiber, and we'll talk about that when looking at the labels. Foods that are high in fiber contain fruits and vegetables, some cereals, not all, popcorn, wheat bread, all these things are high in fiber. Now the reason I use the fart noise when we're looking at this is because if you increase your fiber content dramatically very quickly, you will be farting a lot. So take it slow. More on fiber. So what scientists and nutritionists figured out was it's just not a complex carbohydrate that's good for you. It's a complex carbohydrate that is high in fiber. So again, this raises your blood sugar more slowly and it stays where it should be for a longer period of time, and you don't get that dramatic dropping off the ledge with fiber. So you want to stay away from complex carbohydrates that don't have fiber. White rice, white bread, potatoes, plain pasta. These are all examples of complex carbohydrates that don't have high fiber. So you want to choose an alternative. So white bread, not good for you. Wheat bread is better for you, but you need to make sure when you look at the label that its first thing that's contained in there is wheat. Some companies will actually take white bread and paint it brown and try to convince you that it's wheat bread, and it's not. So the glycemic index, a lot of healthy diets are based on this. The glycemic index shows us how quickly the food is digested and raises your blood sugar. 100 is just pure sugar. You eat pure sugar, it gets into your bloodstream very quickly. You want to stay away from those high glycemic foods because again they raise your sugar very quickly and then you fall off the ledge and your blood sugar plummets. So these are the things that are not good for you. The low values are better for you because your blood sugar goes up more slowly. It takes longer to digest. So you'll see some of these things, Rice Krispies, grape nuts, most people think that's a pretty decent cereal, but again it tends to run on the higher side. So just some examples, and you can find this online, glycemic index, if you want to change your diet. These are low glycemic foods that you would want to have in your diet as part of your carbohydrate. Here are medium, and here are high. So these raise your sugar very, very quickly. And you'll notice table sugar, instant rice, those kind of things are not the best choices that you can make. So the carbohydrate recommendations. Depending on who you read, it is now recommended that 40 to 50% of your diet calories come from carbs. Most from the complex carbohydrates that we talked about. And you'll need to know this for label reading. 1 gram of carbohydrate contains 4 calories. So this can actually go down a little bit. It depends on the diet, but you do need to have some carbs in your diet so your brain and nervous system are happy. Fat. Now in the old days we said don't eat fat, it's all bad for you. And what we found was that that's not true either. So you need some fat in your diet. It provides you with energy. It provides you with cushioning. If you didn't have any fat on your butt, it would hurt when you sat down. It also is important for making cells in the cell membranes that we talked about earlier in the semester. Now, there are different types of fat, and like carbohydrates, some are good, some are bad. One type that is bad is saturated fats. The way I learned this, a teacher finally showed me this in a biochemistry course I took. Sat fat is bad fat. Lard is an example of a saturated fat, and you'll see this is from the 1940s, 1950s, that at some point lard was considered good. How do you identify a saturated fat other than reading the label? It is a fat that will stay solid at room temperature. So if you take a steak out and you take it out of the freezer to thaw, that fat is going to stay solid at room temperature. So saturated fats primarily come from animal fats. They are bad for you because they stack in your arteries and can lead to heart disease. Now I'm giving an example. I had a professor in college, and this is back in the late 80s, and he had high cholesterol. High cholesterol ran in his family. So what he decided to do at that point, it was considered that fat diets lead to high cholesterol. So what he did is he took all the fats out of his diet. All he ate was carbs and protein. And when he tested his cholesterol at the end of his 5-month experiment, he found out his cholesterol actually went up. So what they found is that people who have that genetic predisposition towards high cholesterol, if you take the fat out of your diet, it's kind of like your cholesterol goes up trying to find it, trying to find the fat. So if you put good fats into your system, it's actually been shown to lower your cholesterol. So unsaturated fats are better for you. They are liquid at room temperature, your vegetable oils, etc. But there's a specific type of fat called a monounsaturated fat that is not only not bad for you, it is actually good for you. Having it in your diet within a normal range actually can lower your risk of heart disease. Examples of those include flaxseed oil, canola oil, and olive oil. My father, who has a genetic predisposition to high cholesterol, every day, twice a day, he goes into the freezer and he takes a flaxseed oil, he puts it in a shot glass, and he drinks it. And what he found is after doing this for a few months, his cholesterol actually went down about 30 points. Now, I put olive oil in my oatmeal in the morning, and my cholesterol has pretty much gone down a little bit also. So if you're going to have fat, which you should have some, it should come from these 3 sources. Okay. Now there's another type of bad fat, and those are called trans fatty acids. The theory was good. Scientists thought, hey, let's take saturated fat and in the laboratory convert it into an unsaturated fat, and we'll put it in butter and those kind of things, and we'll lower the bad fat. And what they found is you're better off having saturated fats than you are having trans fatty acids. So an example would be country crock. Take butter. Butter has saturated fat. Country crock has trans fatty acids. These are bad. You are better off using a little bit of butter than you are using country crock. It's getting to a point, the FDA is now currently trying to decide if they want to ban trans fatty acids. So these are man-made fatty acids, and again, they are bad for you. You want to stay away from them. Okay, so bad fats. Most foods have taken them out, and you'll see that advertised on some labels. Another type of fat that is good for you is omega-3 fatty acids. These are a type of polyunsaturated fats. They are found in fish. This is actually a fish in Seattle. They had flooding. It's a salmon, and the salmon was trying to swim upstream, but because the road was so covered, it actually thought the road was the river. So you'll find these omega-3 fatty acids in fish. These are also shown to decrease the risk of heart disease. So it is recommended that you have a source of omega-3 fatty acids 2 to 3 times a week. If you look at the diets of Native Alaskans and up in Canada, their diet is pretty much protein and omega-3 fatty acids because they don't have a lot of carbohydrates where they are. They eat a lot of fish, and they pretty much don't have heart disease in those areas. So these are good for you fats. This just gives an example, and you can look at this on your own, of different types of fat and how much mono and poly and saturated fats they contain. Fat facts. Fat should make up 20 to 30% of your total daily calories, but most should come from unsaturated forms, only or less than 10% should come from saturated fats. Fat has 9 calories per gram. Remember, carbs was only 4, so you get a lot more energy from fat, which you need to be careful about, because that also means that if you don't burn those calories, that those will stay in your body and be stored as fat. Most Americans have decreased their fat content, but they're still gaining weight. The reason why is because we're consuming less fat, but we're consuming more carbohydrates. And remember, those carbohydrates will turn into fat if our storage is too high. Proteins. We need proteins in our diet. They are one of the most proteins make up so many parts of your body, your hair, your muscles, the enzymes of your digestive system. All these things come from proteins, so we need them for building blocks. Now, your body will only use proteins when they are desperate for energy, if they don't or can't use fat or carbohydrates.
I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam, I am.
Okay, so proteins are made of things called amino acids. Go back to that brick building that we used before. Each brick would be an amino acid, and there's 20 different types of bricks or amino acids. The whole wall would be a protein. So these amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, which means they're the building block of your hair, they're the building block of your muscles, your enzymes, and so on. Which of these is high in protein?
I would not eat green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam, I am.
Actually, they are all high in protein. The problem with most of these foods is what? Especially the fried chicken and the bacon that you see here. What's the problem? What else do they contain? They also contain a lot of fat. So you have to look at where your protein are coming from. If they're coming from sources of high fat, especially saturated fats, you need to maybe modify the proteins that you're consuming. Now, these amino acids we were talking about, there's non-essential amino acids and there are essential amino acids. If you eat meat, you are eating the proteins of animals. If you're doing that, then you're getting all 20 amino acids. And there are some that are called non-essential, which means your body can make them from other sources, from the food that you're eating. Now, there are essential amino acids. These are the ones you must consume in your diet. So if you eat animal meat or animal sources, you are getting all the amino acids you need. If you're a vegetarian, there are 8 essential amino acids that if you're not eating animal sources, you're not getting these. And so what you need to do, a good healthy vegetarian, you have to combine different proteins throughout the day to make sure you're getting these 8, because your body cannot make them. You must get them from your diet. Some protein facts. Protein should supply 12 to 15% of your daily calories. This can go up somewhat. It can be higher than this. Protein supplements, a lot of athletes take it. A lot of people that work out a lot take them. They're not really effective unless you're taking them right after you work out, because after you work out, you're breaking down muscle when you work out, and then supplying the body with these amino acids will help you rebuild them. But I will warn you that many protein supplements do not contain what they say. They charge you a lot of money, and you're really not getting what they say they do. They are not regulated by the FDA, and so pretty much people can put whatever they want in them and sell it to you. So you need to make sure that you're using a high quality protein supplement. And most studies have shown that if you just increase your protein intake after a workout, that your muscles will build back up and you will be fine. Just like carbohydrates, proteins, for every gram of protein you get 4 calories. But again, you really don't want your body using protein as an energy source, because that means it's using muscles and it's using other parts of your body and breaking them down in order to make energy. The other essential nutrients: water, vitamins, and minerals. Water, 8-ounce glasses a day. No one's sure if that's exactly how much you should have, but most people don't drink enough water. Try to increase the amount of water that you're drinking. Vitamins are organic, and you mostly need a multivitamin. There has been some research showing though that multivitamins really don't decrease your risk of certain diseases, so trying to eat the foods that contain the vitamins you need are important. Minerals are inorganic. Um, Iron you need for uh, your blood needs it, your red blood cells need it in order for you to carry oxygen. So you need to make sure you get your iron. Calcium obviously is to help with bone density and other important things in your body like your brain being able to think and your heart being able to beat. So this is just a basic background of the nutrients of your body and what you need. In the next video we'll go over